Hello again, ladies and gentlemen. Please keep eating if you've still got main course in front of you, but we are going to crack on with the main part of our lunch event this afternoon. Before I invite our special guests up to the stage, I'll just talk you through the online Q&A portal that we're using this afternoon. I'm sure many of you, if not all of you, will be familiar with Slido. Just allows you to lob a question into the discussion a little bit later if you'd like to, or you can simply lurk in there and endorse other people's questions and push them up the list and give them more likelihood that I'll get a chance to ask that particular question. So it's really easy. You can point your phone at the QR code there. That will take you straight to the portal that we are in this afternoon, or you can do the old school way and go to slido.com, slido.com, no AU. It'll ask you for a code. The code you need is 25MAR for March. So get onto that and that will take you straight into the session. It is open and active right now. Just before I introduce Tania to you, just a quick mention of Miners Promise, which the WA Mining Club is proud to be partnering with, a fantastic initiative. And as you may have heard at a recent event, we are now donating a percentage of every ticket sale from our luncheons to Miners Promise. And last month we raised a bit over $2,000. So your attendance here today will help them to do the incredibly important work that they do, supporting families in a time of great need. So if you'd like any more information about Miners Promise, go and see Deb Morrow. Where's Deb? Somewhere close by. Go and see Deb or one of the other Miners Promise board members who are here with us today. Tania Constable is our special guest this afternoon. Fantastic timing, given we've just had a federal budget, and all the talk is that tomorrow we're going to find out, finally, when the federal election is going to be. After she has her presentation, we're going to have a bit of a chat over on the chairs there, so if you would like to submit a question, then go for your life. So before leading the Minerals Council of Australia, Tania was the CEO of CO2 CRC, a global leader in carbon capture and storage research. She's also held senior executive roles in the Australian government, advising on oil and gas regulation, mining policy and energy development. Her distinguished career also includes serving as Australia's Joint Commissioner and Sunrise Commissioner for the Greater Sunrise Project with Timor-Leste. So ladies and gentlemen, that's a very brief introduction. And I think you're in for a treat this afternoon. I've seen a few of Tania's notes, and it's fairly direct and fairly forthright. So I think we'll all be marching out of here at the end with our pitchforks, ready to take on the world. So with that, would you please welcome Tania Constable.
If the fuel tax credit was taken away from our industry, it would be a significant impact on the costs of our operations.
All of our machinery is diesel, 100%. And it's just the most reliable fuel source that we've got. There's no alternatives out there.
I don't think our industry could actually bear it, to be honest. If the fuel price itself has been such a challenge.
The fuel tax is about roads. The government has other environmental policies that are designed to mitigate emissions. Fuel tax credit won't have an impact on that.
For a start, we're not a road. We're a boat. We're on an ocean.
It's our entire livelihood. It's a full-time job for us.
Our profit margins would be diminished. We would have to then work a way to regain that, and we would be passing that on to customers.
Why would we be paying a road tax when we're boats?
Well, good afternoon, everybody, and thank you, Tim, for that kind introduction, and to the WA Mining Club for the opportunity to speak today. I acknowledge our Indigenous partnerships, which are essential to mining success across the country. Can I also acknowledge and thank three of our board members in the MCA who are here today: Amanda Lacaze, Simon Trott and Ivan Vella. And I'd also like to say a big thank you to my new friend Eddie, who has joined us today, and Eddie is 92 years of age and has travelled the world. A special thank you to colleagues from the mining industry and other industries, including the Fuel Tax Alliance, who are also with us today. What a privilege it is to be back in Western Australia, the powerhouse of the Australian economy, a state that continues to deliver for all Australians and underpin our strength and our success. I want to congratulate the Cook government for its election victory and for standing up for mining when others have taken us for granted. Less than 48 hours ago, the federal government delivered their fourth and final budget leading into the election. The Prime Minister needed to deliver a budget for the future. Instead, he delivered one to secure his own future. Yes. Importantly, mining was forgotten. And if mining is forgotten, then Western Australia is forsaken. This is of immense consequence to Australian households and businesses, because instead of preparing the country for the economic fallout from major geopolitical risks, such as China's weakening economy and escalating trade tensions that threaten investment and jobs, the government is choosing to protect itself. This trade uncertainty, these emerging threats, reinforce the need for Australia to get the fundamentals right in our economy to protect and enhance our global competitiveness, to better position ourselves in such times of economic uncertainty. While commodity prices rise and fall, while economic uncertainty only increases, while government intervention continues to constrain us rather than enable us, while nations actively wage war on our competitiveness, there is one truth that remains constant. The world continues to have an insatiable appetite for Australia's bulk commodities, our mineral wealth, our sources of energy, our mining expertise, and our ingenuity. We've got it in spades. Come and get it. We rightfully boast of the immense opportunities before us, opportunities to build on decades of success in our sector that have brought prosperity for all Australians, to transform our mineral wealth into technologies and innovations, jobs and careers that will define the future. These opportunities cascade through our sector, empowering all of you, service contractors, suppliers and manufacturers, and the 18,000 businesses across the Western Australian economy that rely on mining. Every new mining job generates 6.14 additional jobs across the economy. And for every $1 million in added demand, 2.36 million in extra output is required, fueling growth for the businesses that support and collaborate with mining. The Centre for International Economics estimates that the expansion of mining this century has increased household incomes on average by $19,000 compared to what they would have been otherwise. While the federal government may be reluctant to acknowledge mining's impact on the budget and broader economy, we won't shy away from the facts. Last year, mining delivered $4.5 billion more in company tax than the Treasury forecast, and stronger than expected commodity prices pushed nominal GDP up to 4.1%. And while we see opportunity, we must confront the challenges that stand in the path to realising them. We must be honest about the hurdles we need to overcome, and we must call out any attempt to sabotage our industry, either through ignorance of how we operate, by tired ideology, or by those who plot our demise, such as such as the activists who sought to kill off the McPhillamys Gold Project in Blaney, New South Wales, and it's great to see Jim Bale with us today. Our progress is Australia's progress. Our success is Australia's success. We must protect it, we must fight for it. And this is not the time to stand still while our industry is under attack. This is not the time to be silent, because silence teaches you what you tolerate. It screams acceptance. It invites further intrusion. And this is not the time to play nice with fair weather friends. You either support mining or you don't. To harden our resolve, it's important to imagine what the future looks like if we get it right. But conversely, what it looks like if we're held back. What will Australian mining look like in 20 years if current trends and policy settings remain unchanged? What will Western Australia look like in 20 years? But also, how do we navigate this tenuous moment to ensure our industry not only survives but thrives into the future, that it continues to make a lasting contribution to the prosperity of all Australians, that it continues to underpin our government services and our community needs. This challenge is perhaps more pronounced in Western Australia, where the stakes have never been higher, and the success of the past is no guarantee of the future. Over the past 2 decades, Western Australia's annual iron ore exports have quadrupled, with last year's record haul reaching 903 million tonnes. In just 10 years, the total value of Australian iron ore exports has surpassed $1 trillion. Yet, while past investments have built nearly 1 billion tonnes of production capacity, new projects are not coming online fast enough. Only 60 million tonnes of new capacity is expected in the coming years, a long way short of replacing retiring mines. The challenges to opening new mines are only growing. Approval times have blown out to 18 years. Costs are soaring, with Rio Tinto reporting a 7% rise in iron ore production costs across its 17 Pilbara mines. Even critical minerals needed for the clean energy transition face barriers, particularly smaller operators struggling against global price manipulation and the need for common user infrastructure. Western Australia has long been the economic engine of our nation. But if we don't prepare, if we don't make it easier to dig our resource assets out of the ground, we risk our richest state sliding down the rankings. We risk this state becoming poorer by the year. We risk Australia's ongoing prosperity. This risk is quickly becoming evident in the project success rate. Only 5% of projects are moving from the feasibility stage to the committed stage each year. Then only 1 in 5 make it to completion. And it's not just the trajectory of major projects that is of concern, it is the deposits that remain under lock and key. Uranium is a case in point. There is no technical, environmental, or economic reason to maintain a policy against uranium mining. Now that Premier Cook finally has a mandate from the voting public, it's time to lift this nonsensical ban and seize the opportunity to not only reap the economic benefits, but play a key role in global emissions reduction. It's a damning indictment on the government that it is very happy to host nuclear submarines, the crown jewels of the AUKUS program, yet refuses to supply our allies with uranium for the peaceful purpose of energy generation. The US has 94 nuclear power stations, and we have the uranium to match. In 3 years, we've watched the competitiveness of the Australian minerals sector be systematically whittled down. Poor policy compounded by poor policy. Costs mounted upon costs. A gift to our global competitors. That's not a political statement. Governments of all persuasions have been advocates for our industry. But there is no doubt this federal government has taken a particular bent against our industry. There are platitudes, yes. There are promises, certainly. But actions speak volumes. Our industry has been battered by narrow policies that have compounded high energy prices, by reckless industrial relations policies that damage productivity, by the pursuit of a rigid environmental approval regime that has chased away investment, by uncompetitive tax settings and the threat of higher taxes. And while we have seen the Future Made in Australia tax incentives pass the Parliament, it is hardly the silver bullet. It may help some projects, and the MCA supports it in principle, but such government incentives clash with policies that stifle investment. Investors are not deterred by a lack of tax breaks in Australia. They're holding back because the policy settings are wrong. The business conditions are poor, productivity is dire, and the investment risks are building. The Treasurer wants to see a business-led productivity growth, and so he needs to lead the removal of all the roadblocks in the way. The government must fix the fundamentals first. Quoting further from CIE, a 1% increase in annual productivity by 2030, which is almost equivalent to the economic benefits from the last expansion of mining, would give the economy a $290 billion boost, lift real wages by 9.4% and leave families, that's households, $11,700 better off. That's a future worth investing in, not jeopardising. One of the most concerning aspects of this political stance is the lack of understanding of who bears the impact when the mining sector is under pressure. The government may see itself targeting the corporate giants, remembering a Labor senator admitted that same job, same pay was about getting Qantas and BHP. But the big miners make up only a small fraction of the broader set of businesses across our industry. Western Australia is home to 3,330 mining businesses, yet only 60 of them employ more than 200 people. In contrast, around 2,600 operate with fewer than 5 employees. It's the smallest business and contractors that suffer most when policy decisions tighten investment, while the big miners struggle through and eventually make the commercial decision to either sell up or they become takeover targets. The threat of higher taxes on our industry is not an embellishment, because while the Prime Minister has publicly stated there will be no new taxes on mining, and while Minister King has ruled out winding back fuel tax credits, on current polling, we are staring down the barrel of a minority government. The ultimate power may soon rest on an unwieldy alliance of Teals and Greens, many of whom have stated goals of pursuing a super profit tax and winding back fuel tax credits. The latter is the member for Curtin's signature policy, an electorate built on the back of mining, gas, agriculture and seafood industries that have long received the credits on the fair assumption that road taxes should only be for road users. Government promises are about to be sorely tested in the wheeling and dealing of minority rule. Sitting back, playing nice and hoping you won't be a target would be naive. Only strong voices, standing solid and united against policy stupidity, will win the day. In the MCA 2025 tax plan, we're advocating for the junior minerals exploration incentive to be made permanent and expanded. This initiative has helped level the playing field between junior explorers and large companies that can deduct exploration expenditures from taxable income earned from mining activities. But the annual cap and structure limit its effectiveness. Raising the cap and improving the certainty in credit allocation will unlock more investment and drive new discoveries. We were so disappointed not to see this important initiative announced in the budget. It was not something we were expecting to see, and we need to see that fixed in this election period. The MCA is also pushing for accelerated depreciation for all businesses in this room to encourage a new investment and a broad-based 20% investment allowance. The risk of minority government dealing a dud hand on environmental approvals is something we should be preparing for. The government was right to halt its controversial nature-positive legislation earlier this year, a decision the MCA played an important role in securing. That doesn't mean we don't want reform in this space. The industry has always supported changes to national environment law. We take our environmental stewardship seriously, but reform must deliver for both the environment and for the economy. We must get back to basics, informed by the Samuels review of the EPBC Act, focusing on streamlining approvals, reducing duplication, and having a flexible offsets framework. And there is no reason in 2025 that environmental assessments and approvals could not move from years to hours with the use of AI and enhanced environmental data. Yes, you did hear that right. I said hours, and we have tested this in the MCA. We know it can be done. The budget missed a chance to give industry certainty, with EPBC Act changes targeting only salmon, offering little relief for mining projects already facing long approval delays. The third fundamental is industrial relations. The MCA will not stop prosecuting the reckless changes to workplace laws made by the Albanese government. Under these changes, mining operations, particularly those in the Pilbara, are now vulnerable to the damaging impacts of union disruption and protracted disputes, running the sword through productivity and workplace cohesion. These changes are not about wages. They are about extending union power at an industry-wide scale and imposing union controls within individual workplaces. And we're already starting to see this occur here in WA, with the Mining and Energy Union trying to barge their way into the Pilbara, despite having no previous presence. Certain unions have been very clear about their intention to in their own words, reunionise the Pilbara. This is not a single element of these new measures that will enhance productivity or cooperation in workplaces. They will do the exact opposite. Our demand of government's workplace relations is threefold. First, repeal new powers that give unions the ability to intrude into workplaces without support from workers. This is a particular threat to the Pilbara, with one miner confirming that they had seen a 300% increase in so-called right of entry incursions. Second, reform the so-called same job, same pay laws so they can't apply to service contractors who provide a specified service rather than labour. When this legislation was introduced, Tony Burke promised that it contained a clear line that would exclude service contractors. Yet in the very first case before the Fair Work Commission 2 months ago, the government's own King's Counsel told the Commission that this had never been its intention and that there was no real distinction between labour hire and service contractors. The government's assurances were worthless, as we always knew they were. And third, repeal multi-employer bargaining laws that allow for competing employers to be forced into union-controlled bargaining against their will. This would see a return to industry-wide strikes, and who needs what's happening on the East Coast? Finally, on energy. Although Western Australia operates its own energy grid, it would be remiss not to acknowledge the broader energy issues impacting our productive industries. Let me be clear, we are in an emergency situation on energy in this country. In just 15 years, we have transformed the national electricity market from a system where over 90% of the generation was coming from dispatchable power plants to one where almost half of the generation capacity is now weather-dependent, wind and solar. We all know solar and wind will play an important role in our future energy. However, it is clearly more complex to integrate and manage this fundamentally changed system, as reflected by the fact that wholesale electricity prices in the NEM have risen between 130 and 195% over the same period. And the result? Almost the same total output at around 210 terawatt hours. While Australia is not the first nation to deal with the severe ramifications from replacing baseload power with weather-dependent generation, we have few peers that are so stubbornly focused on a pure renewable energy pathway to net zero, no matter what the cost. By this approach, we are dudding Australian households and business owners who are struggling to pay their bills. This is exacerbated by the government's schizophrenic position on gas. It says it wants more gas in the system. It even has a future gas strategy, albeit minus the strategy bit. But there appears no political will to expedite approvals. Unlike assets, incentivise state governments to drill, baby, drill, and encourage investment in infrastructure. The saga surrounding the North West Shelf gas project extension is a case in point. A project of strategic importance for domestic gas supply, for jobs, and for Australia's ongoing prosperity is still waiting the Minister's approval to merely extend the use of existing infrastructure. It not only damages Australia's reputation as a sensible destination for investment, it undermines our energy security and puts upward pressure on energy bills. You can't just keep giving $150 rebates forever. The MCA's energy plan focuses on 3 points. First, our approach must be technology agnostic, with all options on the table, whether that's renewables, nuclear, gas or coal with CCS, and therefore we must be pragmatic and guided by science, not ideology nor politics, so we can get the balance right between emissions, cost and reliability. Second, we can't afford to shut down existing infrastructure until replacement capacity is proven and operational. And third, what is being undertaken here is the most ambitious energy infrastructure transformation in our history, and without anyone doing it successfully elsewhere in the world. And while that transformation is important, Australia is attempting to bring it on too quickly without the necessary safeguards in place and with no consideration of the need to build the lowest cost energy system. No other nation is running at this pace, so why are we? We can't afford to get it wrong. Now is the time for serious, solutions-focused energy policy before it's too late. It's these 4 fundamentals that governments must urgently address to give Australia back its competitive edge, to ensure we don't miss this extraordinary opportunity to extend mining's golden run for another generation and beyond, to ensure Western Australia stays at the top and not slides towards the bottom. With the federal election on our doorstep, this is our unashamed clarion call to every politician and in equal measure to all of you. Stand up for your business. Our strength lies in our collective voices. A bright future depends upon it. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Tania. We could be selling T-shirts after that, I reckon. Thank you for your presentation. I suppose as a disclaimer of sorts from the outset, I should say that the Mining Club is, by its nature, supposed to be an apolitical organisation. So I'm just going to put the ball on the tee, and you can take out the 3 wood and smash it as far as you like, which I think you've already done. You're very direct in your style of advocacy, which I'm sure has rubbed a few people in the current federal government up the wrong way over the years. How would you describe your relationship with the current government, in particular the Resources Minister?
Well, it's really important that you develop strong relationships with all politicians, and we've managed to do that over a long period of time. You don't need to be liked. You know, I certainly don't need to be liked in the job that I do, but importantly, you need to be respected. And I think that our mining industry has a good relationship with the Resources Minister. I have a good relationship with the Resources Minister, and she's done a lot to support the industry. But she does not have in equal measures that support across the rest of Cabinet. There are a few within Cabinet that support mining, but across the board, no, there is no support for the mining industry as a whole.
There wasn't a lot for you to be excited about in the budget 2 nights ago. What was the single biggest disappointment out of that?
Well, we weren't expecting to receive a lot. I think there was some attention on the mining industry last year with the production tax credits, and importantly, a focus on pre-competitive geoscience it's something that we really need to have in terms of a prospectus for Australia. But the single biggest problem with the budget was no recognition for the funds that are provided by the industry to help the bottom line. I talked about the extra 4.5 billion coming from this industry. There's never any recognition of the taxes that are created by this industry. The junior minerals exploration incentive, not having that in the budget was an absolute disgrace. It terminates on the 30th of June, and we better see it as an election commitment during this election period. Otherwise, I think we'll be out with brickbats after the election, making sure that we see that restored. If we want to have a pipeline of projects in this country, we need to support our explorers because they are the lifeblood of the industry.
It's hard to imagine their logic behind that, you know, sitting around cabinet and throwing this idea out there, oh, let's can it. It's hard to imagine how the idea of canning it even took hold.
I think it's
What's the motivation, do you think, behind it?
Well,
who knows?
We're so shocked that it wasn't announced. It should have been announced in the budget, considering on the 30th of June, it finishes. That means we've got nothing after that period.
Yep.
So there will be a hiatus by the looks of things, no matter what. I just think that's just completely unacceptable that Cabinet did not just push that through as a budget measure. Seems
a no-brainer, doesn't it? I noticed there were some funding commitments there, particularly if the word green was in the title, the Green Aluminium Production Credit and the Green Iron Investment Fund. Maybe you need the word green in the Junior Minerals Exploration Incentive.
I like the sound of that.
Just get the word green into the title there.
Yeah. Everything starts with green.
Through it goes. Obviously, there's hours away we're going to get the opposition's budget reply. At the top of your shopping list to be announced tonight, what's on the top?
Well, I would imagine that this is going to be a cost of living budget reply, and we've already seen the Leader of the Opposition talk about fuel excise. I'm sure everybody in this room, including me, is excited by that one. I think that's a smart move by the opposition to put that forward. But on mining, I talked about the 4 fundamentals. I'm not expecting to see much on industrial relations. I think that is something nobody really wants to talk about in an election context. But I think energy supply is important and bringing down costs. So we want to see a short, medium-term, long-term plan, and the coalition has already talked about nuclear. But I think there needs to be more at the front end to address this whole issue for businesses about the rising costs of energy and the assessment and approval process. I talked about planning in the 18 years. Again, we're in a competition with countries around the world, Canada, where we're seeing our miners go into what are relatively politically unstable jurisdictions around the world. So anything that can bring down timeframes in Australia, I think is something that would help draw those big investments back into Australia. And we need them if we're going to maintain the living standards that I think all Australians have become used to.
So can you just give us a simple snapshot then of what you would like the environmental approvals process to be? So, I mean, currently taking the North West Shelf extension, for instance, we've got state approvals being granted. We're waiting for federal approval. You want to see that 2-tier system abolished and have one in its place. What would you like that one system to look like?
Well, we've been fighting against a national EPA for quite some time. In our view, there is no reason to have a national EPA when you've got state EPAs in place, because all you're doing is duplicating the assessment and approval process. So that could be done now through a bilateral agreements, and we're going to be strongly advocating for that to occur. So that's important. It should start to bring down timeframes when you're not competing against the 1,000 conditions that are imposed coming from two sets of assessment and approval processes. So that's really important. You could halve it, but I talked in my speech about getting it down to
2 hours.
That is not
How are you doing that?
unrealistic.
Just asking ChatGPT to run the numbers.
One of my staff, he went away and he looked at a project. I asked him to reverse engineer an assessment approval process back in. It took him 30 minutes, and it spat out recommendations that could be used in terms of the conditions you would impose on a project. Now, you've got to have all the data, of course, to do that, but so it's only as good as the data you put in. But most of that hour should be about verification, not actually doing the work itself. So that's what we should be using AI for. We've got hung up on safety, and I think that's important, but now's the time to look at how innovative we can get on things like this, and that really does cut down red tape. So I'm not being unrealistic, and I'm going to make sure that we've got a project on this.
Yeah.
So I think it's something we could really do and get ahead of the rest of the world in a short period.
It's a fascinating space, isn't it? Can we talk about uranium? It's a conversation that's been aired fairly extensively in this room, particularly in the last year or two, and every time I get onto LinkedIn, I think I have to catch up on about 10 posts or notifications or comments that Jonathan Fisher's logged in. He's the most prolific LinkedIn poster I think I know, but he can't do it all on his own. The conversations that go on between representative bodies like the MCA and state and federal government, like how do they go? What is the hold up?
It's just ideology. It is something that Environment Minister after Environment Minister of all political persuasions have not been willing to address. Uranium should be mainstreamed in the Environment Protection Biodiversity Conservation Act. It should be front and centre if we want this state to stay a wealthy state on the back of big projects. Then we need to see uranium exploration, because there's plenty here, exploration and mining occurring in this country. The United States, as I said, they need uranium. They don't have the supply they need for the 94 reactors that they have in the United States because of AI and the move to data centres. So they're dealing with Kazakhstan and Russia to supply uranium. Why wouldn't you get it from a place like Australia and Western Australia sitting on its hands on this issue? So I want to make sure that the Cook government know that this is serious and that we need all of you to press on the Cook government to get this particular sector going in Western Australia.
Yeah. I mean, I've heard, in private conversations, members of the WA Labor government and federal government, if you speak to them personally, they don't have a massive issue with it. No. But they don't have the motivation to go public with it and risk political fallout from it. So what is it going to take? Is it going to take a plummeting iron ore price and our overall revenue pool to drop down to a certain level before suddenly it becomes a realistic opportunity for them to explore? Under what scenario do you think the uranium ban is going to be dropped here in WA?
Well, I'd like to see iron ore prices stay up. I'm sure that some of my board
members... But is it going
to
take a lever that drastic?
Well, it's one lever, but what it will take is that you get a crisis where revenue really drops off in Western Australia, and then governments say, well, how am I going to support government services? How am I going to make sure that I'm building new roads, that I'm looking after those social activities that we've become used to across Western Australia? I think that's really what it's going to take, and we don't have enough projects being maintained at this stage. We don't have those production levels coming through in some of our commodities. So I think the government, Cook government, is fast going to say, Well, perhaps we need to take a closer look at what projects we actually do need in Western Australia, but importantly for every state to look at that across Australia. We've got so much opportunity. We need to bring it together and get governments and people across Australia behind our industry. So that's, I think importantly, that's what we'll be doing.
A question from the audience just on the uranium ban. The State Secretary of the AMWU here, Steve McCartney, has justified the ban, saying, and this is a quote I believe, "We can't mine it safely." What's your reaction to that?
Oh, we've been doing uranium mining in Australia. Uranium mining's happening across the world. As I said, there's no scientific reason, there is no engineering reason, there is no safety reason. When you've got the best regulation anywhere in the world, and we are regulated to death in this country, that we can't do uranium mining. And governments know that. They choose to ignore it. And they're ignoring it at their peril.
If Donald Trump keeps slapping tariffs on us, could uranium indeed be our trump card, for want of a better phrase, to try to restore some balance with his administration? Could it be that that is what saves the day for us?
Well, I have regular discussions, as you would expect, on trade and investment, including with our United States colleagues and with the Australian government. I have raised uranium as an important strategic mineral for this country in negotiations. I've also raised gold as an important strategic mineral for this country in our negotiations. And the reason for that is normally we have a trade deficit with the United States. When we see volatility across markets in the world, particularly on trade, then what usually happens is there is a reverse to a tendency to go back to a gold standard. So gold is being exported from Australia and imported into the United States. And we've seen magnificent prices for gold, which is fantastic for the industry. But those two, I think, given what the United States needs on top of critical minerals, which of course we keep advocating for, and Lynas is at the heart of that, and lithium, of course, is very important, but our rare earths are needed for strategic purposes, for defence purposes by the United States, and for all those electronics that we use every day.
I'm getting the wind up, so I think we've just got time for one more question. I'm going to ask Jordan's question because I think it's a nice way to finish off this afternoon. What is the most impactful thing that we as the mining industry can do to get the government to support us more?
Voices. It's okay for me to advocate, and I do, and I will always stand up for this industry. But where governments take notice is when communities stand up and say, "You're ignoring us." It's where businesses stand up and say, "You're ignoring us." It's where captains of industry stand up and say, "You're ignoring us and we're going to take our money elsewhere." It's all of you, it's all of us with our collective voice that will make the difference and have these governments across Australia at a federal level, at a state level here in Western Australia, to take us seriously. So please, as I said, support the industry and stand up for the industry and have your say during this federal election and beyond.
And just on that, how are they best going to do that? Is it by, getting in a nice big conga line behind the MCA and other representative bodies? Like, how are they best going to have their voice heard? Well,
that's one way to do it, but get into the media in Western Australia. It has to be said publicly. Into radio, on television, have conversations, make sure young people understand where their mobile phones come from, where the electric vehicles come from, the minerals that we all use. So it's actually creating that understanding about the importance every day of our sector. So get into the media, make sure that you're having your say in those dinner time conversations, I think that's the way to do it.
There you go. And members of the media here today, so go and hit them up on the way out. There you go, I've just dumped them in it. Tania, thank you so much for your presentation and your words of wisdom this afternoon. Ladies and gentlemen, would you please thank Tania Constable, and I'll get you to stay there and hand over to Danny Tarmody for a more official vote of thanks.
Thanks, Tim. Thank you, Tania, and to Simon, Amanda and Ivan for also joining us here today in your roles on the Mineral Council of Australia Board, and to David Parker for your efforts to bring this all together. Distinguished guests Jim Bayard, Jono Fisher, and my takeaways. If mining is forgotten, WA is forsaken. The world has an insatiable appetite for our commodities, and jobs and careers define the future. Our progress is Australia's progress, with WA as the economic engine of Australia, and we need to not only survive, we need to thrive in the future for all Australians. And it's about time we recognise nationally for our overall contribution. So thank you so much, Tania. It's lovely having you join us.